fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin, joined by a cattail. Nope, never mind. And also, of course, a more important guest today. We have Harley. Is it Dugan or Dugan?
It is Dugan.
It is Dugan. Okay, that was my instinct, but I should just stick with my instincts with these things. But guys, he is Harley Dugan of the Lead. He is at the Lead _Houston on the Twitter /X/ whatever the heck we're calling it these days. I know you also are the host of the Bleav in Texans podcast on the Bleav Podcast Network. Harley, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you reaching out, and can't wait to talk some Texans Falcons with you.
Yeah, a much more spicy matchup, I think, than people were originally anticipating on both sides of this equation. So we'll definitely get Harley's take on sort of the Texans revitalization here to start the going into Week 5. Before we do, want to get you guys a quick word from our sponsor, BetOnline.ag, folks. Football is back, and BetOnline is your number one information source for all your sports wagering info with up-to-the-minute stats, news, scores, and matchup breakdowns. You can get the latest game odds, spreads, and totals from the NFL and college football at your fingertips with BetOnline's real-time updates on statistics, news, and odds from Week 1 all the way to the college football playoff and Super Bowl. BetOnline gives you access to the best football promotions and contests available anywhere online. No matter what you want to bet on, guys. You know, I personally have a rule that I don't bet on my own team because then, you know, your heart gets into it. You can't make good decisions when your heart's involved. So, you know, my suggestion would probably, and I don't really like the spread in this game either because, you know, I don't know. I don't trust the Falcons, but whenever I think the Falcons are totally out of a game, they usually do something weird. So I would probably avoid this one. I think Vegas is going to make too much money off this game. But no matter what you guys want to do, BetOnline.ag is the website. Head to that website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Just remember to use our promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Harley. Well, both these teams 2-2 at this point. This is exactly where I was expecting the Falcons to be, although I was hopeful that it wouldn't be quite as ugly over the last 2 weeks. But for the Texans, I wouldn't have predicted them to be 0-4 or anything like that, but the last 2 weeks have been very impressive, and this team is definitely seeming to find its footing a lot earlier than I think many outsiders were expecting. But from an insider's perspective on your team, how are you feeling 4 weeks into this season?
It is exactly what my face is. It is just ear to ear. The smiles have not stopped within the city of Houston. It is fantastic to be a Houston Texans fan, to put it quite simply. It's just so much elation and joy to finally have a franchise here with the Texans that feels like they could actually contend, and not just for this year, but for many years going forward. And that all starts at the quarterback position with the absolute emergence of CJ Stroud. He just got off with Pat McAfee right now. I mean, the national love for the Houston Texans, I don't know how to receive it. I'm not used to it. I'm used to bad things, or just you play good, but then boom, something bad really happens and you start, you know, getting talked bad upon them around national media. No one really takes you serious. You're just that good team, but never a great team, you know, and it's been very gloomy around the Texans. But now, with DeMeco Ryans and then hiring DeMeco Ryans, I was like just pressing the F5, pressing the refresh button on this Texans organization. And it certainly helps when you find yourself a quarterback. But man, it has been so much fun here inside Houston, man. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. Like we were talking before the show, I think us struggling, tortured fan bases, we have to band together. You know, we gotta lift each other up when we're struggling, and we gotta celebrate when we're doing good. I'm gonna save the Texans celebration for after this game, you know, so you know, right, we have to be, you know, opponents for this week, but after that, you know, best of luck to you guys, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I think the Texans are way further along than anyone thought, and I mean I like the draft. I think, the moves they made at the top were a little bit, not the Stroud move, but the trade up to get Will Anderson a little bit. Draft Nicks didn't love it, for the value and all this, but both those guys seem to be big time contributors, but particularly CJ Stroud, who, at this point has had the best start to his career since Joe Burrow. And then before that, I don't even know. So, what has it been? Has it been all Stroud? Has it been a mix of the scheme? I know you guys have been dealing with a ton of offensive line injuries too. So it seems like he's just been able to sort of navigate this minefield almost perfectly through the first 4 weeks.
Yeah, this goes credit to the coaching staff, man. I was huge on Bobby Slowick whenever the rumor was potential coaches coming along and DeMeco Ryans. I did a list of coaches and maybe their potential coaching staff attached to it. Guys that had any sort of connection with DeMeco, I had it on there and I posted it on Twitter. And one of the guys I was just glued to was Bobby Slowick. He started all the way with the Washington football team or Redskins all the way
whatever
back
it was. Yeah, it's changed so many times.
Yeah. It was the Washington Redskins, and then they had Mike Shanahan at the time of RG3. Bobby Slowick was just a video guy. He was just a guy that was a video coordinator, and that was it. And then, but being under Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, and then we saw the rest of that coaching staff. Sean McVay was also there at one point later. So, and there was some other person I can't think of off the top of my head, but there was one more. But Bobby Slowick became video guy, PFF for many years. He worked within the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan. He is the guy that is making this work as much as it is CJ Stroud as well, too. Like, he's also got to, make it translate onto the field. But Bobby Slowick, his schemes, it's just reminiscent of good Texans offense when we had Gary Kubiak. And, both of their languages are similar, because they both stem from that same tree. I like to call here in Houston. Well, I think we like to call it the Gary Kubiak tree. I like to give him his flowers a little bit more. But I love Bobby Slowick. I love what he's been doing, the schematics, extra blockers in the Steelers game. You had John Mechie, a guy that just went through leukemia last year and going from the draft with the torn ACL. And he had John Mechie this last week blocking TJ Watt. And that just tells you, A, the players are sold with this coach and DeMeco Ryans, because that just takes someone that is sold. B, that is just, I would have never thought about doing that. But John Mechie stands him up. There's multiple video of him just standing up and blocking TJ Watt. He's got Andrew Beck in motion and hikes the ball as soon as he's in motion so he can have a good little head start, you can say, to block, and that head start, that is just helps just a little bit more, especially when we got an offensive line. Like you said, it's patched up, man. This isn't our starting offensive line. Hell, it's barely our backup offensive line. We got guys that we traded from the Steelers and Kendrick Green. Sad that he tore his meniscus. He's going to be out for the rest of the year. But he did amazing in the Steelers game. This offensive line, the combination of CJ Stroud, Bobby Slowick, it has just been fun to watch. Again, fantastic to be a fan.
Yeah, no, it's an exciting group, and again, it's a young quarterback on a rookie contract. It's set up well, I think, for the future too. And it just this year, it seems like all of a sudden there's maybe even an opportunity, because the AFC South is nowhere near. It's not shaken out like anyone expected. Obviously, with the Colts are sort of in a very similar spot to the Texans. I would say that they've got an interesting young quarterback, but no one really knows how long. Is it going to take time? All that sort of stuff. And then the Jaguars have scuffled. They beat up on our Falcons last week, but the Jaguars have not gotten out to, I think, the dominant start that most were expecting. And the Titans are just, again, this team that nobody really knows what to expect week to week. So the division's open. And the NFC and AFC South are kind of similar in that way, where there's not really a clear favorite. It's there for the taking. And I think the Texans, obviously, if they keep playing like this, they'll be the favorite before long in this division. So let's check on the injury report real quick. We're recording this Thursday afternoon, so we haven't gotten a full report on Thursday yet. But I know there's been some buzz that the Texans might be able to get multiple offensive linemen back this week. It seems like it's still a little bit up in the air in terms of if they'll be ready to play or if they're just returning to practice. But I know Laramie Tunsil is one, and then Titus Howard is another. What do you think about their potential availability this week? Do you expect them to play, or is it more of a questionable tag?
I expect Titus Howard to play. I do. Laramie Tunsil, I want, my mind is saying go ahead and say expect him to play, which I will. But there is some slight worry still with his knee. He's just had some knee soreness. Worst case scenario, just a few weeks back was that maybe he had to drain his knee or arthroscopic, and that would have been really bad. But he has made a lot of progress. But I would lean on to saying that he is going to be playing this week along with Titus Howard.
Okay, gotcha. So it seems like Howard pretty confident.
Yes.
Laramie Tunsil, maybe 60% confident, slightly more than average. We'll call it that. That's close. I mean, we haven't seen Thursday's report yet, so that would probably give more clarity too. So do watch the report, folks, on that. But the Falcons side, we did lose linebacker Troy Anderson for the season last week, but other than that, Falcons coming into this one with a clean bill of health. So really, it's just about the matchups in this one, because thankfully, it looks like injuries won't be a major player in this game. I mean, I don't think there's any concern that Dameon Pierce is going to miss this one, right?
No, he was a full go at practice from what I heard, and I saw multiple people say he looked just fine.
Okay, good. But, I'm interested for fantasy reasons as well as just Dameon Pierce is fun.
Hey, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah. After I watched him at the Senior Bowl trucking everybody, he's been on my fantasy teams ever since, out of respect for that performance. But, let's get into this matchup, because I think if you looking at the Pro Football Reference stats and things like that, these were two defenses that I think most people thought were not going to be good, like that they were not going to be ready to go, at least early on, because for the Texans, because of perceived lack of talent, for the Falcons, because just no one could believe that the Falcons defense would ever possibly be good. But both of these defenses actually look remarkably similar in terms of their stats, where I think the Falcons are 10th in scoring, the Texans are 11th. Both are allowing about the 7th, 8th sort of total yardage numbers, yards per play. The one difference seems to be that the Falcons' run defense is a little bit better than the Texans, but not a huge gap. So both these defenses better than expected. In terms of the offenses, obviously these are two offenses that are going in different directions, with the Texans sort of having some struggles early, but really coming on strong the past 2 weeks, and the Falcons doing pretty well the first 2 weeks and then scoring single digits the past 2 weeks. So teams going in a little bit of different directions here, but the Falcons are coming back home, where Desmond Ridder remains undefeated at home. It's 4-0 at home, 0-4 on the road. So maybe this is just going to be a Jekyll and Hyde sort of situation for a while. But let's start with the Falcons offense versus the Texans defense. Falcons, they got all the weapons. They've got a great running back duo, and the offensive line is starting to calm down after a pretty bad week 3 against the Lions. But they're not getting the ball to said weapons. Desmond Ridder, after a decent start, I would say, in the first 2 games, especially with that 12-point fourth quarter comeback against the Packers, where that was the best he's looked in his entire career. We took a nosedive in week 3, and then week 4 was even worse. So the Falcons passing game, very concerning. How has the Texans pass defense been holding up so far, and what do you think about that matchup?
It's been amazing, actually. I know we did lose Derek Stingley. They put him on the IR, so he's going to be gone for 4 weeks. He won't be able to play this week as well. So with Steven Nelson, he's been the best. Even when Derek Stingley was there at training camp, Steven Nelson showed to be the best cornerback in the secondary. For someone that was just a pickup last year, 2 years ago, to someone that got extended for another year, he has been tremendous. The last 2 weeks, he has really even stepped up his game even further. Made a beautiful play against the Steelers where he was just saw ball, go get ball, basically. And he's playing a zone. It was a cover zone 6, and he's, one-on-one. I forgot who the receiver was, but basically he's got the zone deep, and Kenny Pickett flings it. And a better pass maybe does either A, gets deflected, or B, can make a really good catch with it. but Steven Nelson just watches that ball, and soon before the ball's even thrown, he knows, takes off, goes and gets it. He's been amazing. The biggest thing for us is we had a struggle against the Ravens defensively. Well, you didn't have one of your safeties, and one of them being Jimmy Ward. Okay. Then Jalen Petrie leaves the second half of the game because of a bruised lung. He got kneed in the chest. And the defense in the second half from the Ravens game did not look anything like the defense in the first half. Colts game, you didn't have both of your safeties. And that was our worst game all year, defensively especially. Really, really bad, just to put it simple. It was bad. Then week 3, you get one of them back again in Jimmy Ward, plays the whole game, and the defense was absolutely awesome against the Jaguars. Now you got both of them back against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a game that, I think every generic NFL fan respects the Steelers organization. I don't think that's breaking news. Everyone knows that you play the Steelers, you get a win. Like that's huge. That's a statement, because they have that kind of respect. Both safeties play, your defense holds them to 6 points. I mean, now you're going to have both safeties play again. Both of them are healthy. I am very confident in our secondary and what they can do. Tavier Thomas is also going to be returning from a broken hand. He had surgery on his broken hand, and now he's returning. He's only been out for like 2-3 weeks. I mean, that's remarkable. I would have thought he would have been out a little bit longer. He played very well in the nickel. He's our nickel cornerback, so I expect him to be slotted back in there. I saw Jimmy Ward play some nickel. Even though he doesn't want to play nickel, he wants to be specifically a safety. I did see him line up many times in the nickel against the Steelers. With Tavier Thomas back, expect him back at safety. And business as usual, the secondary should be doing their thing. And to me, it's been the strength of this Texans defense from training camp to now.
Yeah. I know Tavier Thomas has been playing awesome. Obviously, Steven Nelson, a really nice surprise. If there is a vulnerability in that pass defense, what would you say it is? Is it the pass rush? Is it maybe whoever's going to be starting in Derek Stingley's place? It looks like PFF's thinking it'll be Shaquille Griffin. But what is your opinion on that, where maybe a spot that the Falcons could look to attack?
I could definitely see it being Shaquille Griffin. He had a good performance against the Steelers. He's been okay since we signed him. He's been a solid signing. I'm glad we signed him just because veteran depth reasons, and he wanted to come here because of the scheme. He says he knew the scheme, so that was very helpful. He's been okay to solid, but I could see something being that. I would say the pressure up front at times can be inconsistent, and that more so being, I think a lot of teams are seeing, okay, we can highlight Will Anderson. We're going to double team him. We're going to chip him. We're going to throw something at him. We're not going to have him wreck the game. Now, we did see Jonathan Grenard just have 2 sacks against the Steelers. The week before, it was a little bit of, sure, we did win the game and defensively we played well, but, Jonathan Grenard was someone that you were trying to look for. The linebackers as well, I think, are vulnerable. It's tough to say that because Henry To'oTo'o has been playing amazing since he's basically the starter now. I mean, and he has been playing amazing, but I would say that it is still vulnerable because he's a rookie, so mistakes are going to happen. A learning curve is going to happen. Christian Harris is an in and out guy. He can come in on run plays, can come in on a few pass plays as well. The defense overall is solid, but I think the way to attack this Texans defense, it has to be quick passes, another extension of the run game. Make sure that, you're getting inside the numbers. The run defense specifically for this Texans team, it just hasn't been that good. And there's a lot of lack of depth inside the interior defensive line. Sure, Sheldon Rankins is solid, but Malik Collins, he's more noted for his pass rush ability than his run stuff. So after that, Hassan Ridgeway is still on IR, and he was huge for us week 1 against the Ravens. He's been on IR since that game. So we're not going to have him. Kurt Hinish is still there. Hinish is just another backup interior D line. I think he's a very easily replaceable guy. That's no disrespect to him.
Yeah,
But
in the context of the NFL, specifically,
yeah,
yes.
because Najee Harris in the second half, you noticed, if anybody was watching, the Steelers' run game started taking over a bit. And they started really pounding the ball with Najee Harris. And I was there at the game, and I'm watching this, and they take him off on a third down. And Najee Harris gets upset, like really upset on the sideline. They put in Jaylen Warren, who also had some success against us, and we stuff them. And they make it fourth down. And Najee Harris just blows up even some more. So the run defense is still a little bit of a problem for this Texans team, but we like to not show that too much against teams. We like to not say that too much.
We want to keep that quiet. Yeah. Well, that could be a significant issue this week because the Falcons have not proven they can throw the ball, but they have proven they could run the ball. They put up over 200 yards against the Packers. I think it was over 150 against the Jaguars last week. And Packers definitely don't have a great run defense, but the Jaguars coming in, I think, had a top 10 run defense. So how big is the concern level there going up against this Falcons team that we know is probably going to focus on running the ball as much as possible with their new toy, Bijan Robinson, who basically has had to be the offense with Desmond Ridder struggling.
Yeah, Bijan, I always thought that was just felt like a no-brainer considering the coach y'all had, considering what he did in Tennessee. So, with a lot of running in Tennessee. So, I expected, man, it just felt like Bijan's going to Atlanta.
Yeah.
It was whether or not is he going to fall there. Is the team going to get enamored with the tools he has? And he is everything and everything else as advertised. Okay. Yeah. So, he's going to be a handful. He definitely is. Jalen Petrie was just on 610, one of our local Houston sports radio shows that they're the flagship station of the Texans. And Jalen Petrie is just a film nerd. And if anybody doesn't know Jalen Petrie, he's the safety for the Texans. And he is on path for me to become a future Pro Bowler and even an All-Pro, I Bleav, at some point in his career. He is really, really good, and it's only his second year in the league. But he's a film nerd, and he told them he's been watching film on Bijan Robinson going all the way back to his Texas playing days, and even playing some of his high school film. And it's like, okay, so they know what the task is at hand. They know if they can somehow, it's not about stopping. A lot of teams, a lot of fans are like, oh, we got to stop the run game. Well, it's going to be extremely tough to stop Bijan Robinson. It's more so about containing him, making sure he doesn't continue to break those, you don't want a 6-7, get him on a roll kind of runs. You don't want that. You contain him and force Desmond Ridder to become that passer. And we've seen it. It hasn't been very successful for Falcons fans. So, regardless of the numerous amount of weapons, that's what you want to do if you're the Texans defense. That's what you want to do if you're DeMeco Ryans. Contain Bijan as much as you can. Don't let him get going. Once he does, it's tough to stop him. So contain him as much as you can. Make Desmond Ridder become the passer he isn't. And we can move forward, and maybe the Texans can get that done.
Yeah. I think the key to this game is, can the Falcons running game take over? Because when they can do that, they've been very successful offensively, but it's dicey because you basically have to be perfect or close to perfect to string together drives with nothing but the run game. They're not a team that's really been able to get out from behind bad down and distance and overcoming penalties and things like that. So definitely this is going to be a big test for the Texans run defense. We'll see if they can rise to the challenge, or if Bijan has it's not a Texas homecoming because the game's in Atlanta, but there's a little taste of Texas here. So maybe he gets a little home spirit there for this one. But let's move over to the other side of the ball where the Texans, I think, again, much better than people thought. CJ Stroud, by far the best rookie quarterback. And that receiving core, especially Nico Collins, I think, got a really bad rap because of who was throwing him the ball, and very familiar, I think, to the Falcons, where I think when the Falcons get a maybe a better quarterback in here will start to be like, oh wow, maybe Kyle Pitts actually is good. You're like, yeah. Nico Collins, 2nd round pick. Maybe he actually is good. Maybe he was good this whole time. But the Falcons defense, on the other hand, has been very good, especially against the pass. And this is probably going to be one of those marquee matchups. How do you feel about this Texans offense, particularly the passing game, and how they'll be able to go up against this Falcons pass defense, who have been pretty stout so far with AJ Terrell? They've got Jeff Okudah back now, and of course the best safety in the NFL through 4 weeks, Jesse Bates.
Oof, man, that was a huge signing for y'all. Y'all had a lot of good signings this free agency with y'all's defense. I was kind of like, man, this is a underrated defense right here going into the start of the NFL season, So with that being said, Nico Collins has been amazing. A lot of Texans fans, this is not me, but there was a lot of Texans fans with the overreactions to Nico Collins. Some people up to the point of they just wanted to cut him, and that's just not what I wanted to do. I saw a receiver that has intangibles. He's 6'3", 6'4", runs like a deer, can make those high point catches, and I thought the biggest thing was CJ Stroud was at the podium just, I want to say, a week ago, or it might have been before the Steelers game, and would have been a week ago. And he said it, like, he was talking about Nico Collins. They had asked him what is up with his emergence this year. And he said, man, he watched a lot of film on Nico Collins and said that Nico Collins was wide open last year many times. Whether or not that's a shot at Davis Mills, I mean,
maybe a little bit, yeah.
Maybe a little bit. We'll just chalk that one up to the board. But CJ Stroud noticed that Nico Collins can get open and the ball wasn't thrown his way. So, okay, I'm going to make it more prevalent that, yeah, he is everything he was advertising, why we traded up for him. So, and you gave up some solid draft assets to get him too. So CJ Stroud has made him look really good. Going up against AJ Terrell, really good cornerback. I do wonder how much is Nico going to get play into this game. I'm looking more at your Dalton Schultz, and specifically a Robert Woods, and more specifically, my favorite guy, my Houston bias kicks in, and it's Tank Dell. That's the guy that I'm looking at a lot for this game. I'm wondering, okay, what's going to happen? I see AJ Terrell. Okay, Jeff Okudah's back. Sure, not too bad. Robert Woods, veteran. Robert Woods has been that guy that you need a 3rd and 3. Robert Woods is going to get you 4 yards. You need a 3rd and 7. Robert Woods is going to get you 8 yards. And he might only have 4 catches in the game, 5 catches. But damn it, those catches are going to be clutch. They're going to move the chains. And he is just, when you need him, he is there. So Tank Dell, to me, he had a big game against the Jaguars, real quiet against the Steelers, little jet sweep action. Never seen that in the Texans' history. Jet sweep motion. I was ecstatic. Tank Dell, I think, is someone that I'm going to highlight for this Texans offense that maybe could have a big game against the Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, this will be Jeff Okudah's 2nd game back, and even last game, well, I guess technically his 3rd game, but the first game he barely played. Then last week he played most of the game, so he'll probably be getting the entire load this week. Played really well against the Jaguars and really limited the damage of Christian Kirk. Well, not Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk in the slot. So would have been more of, pretty much shutting down whoever was not Calvin Ridley, which of course without Zay Jones out there, not exactly the toughest test. So he's going to be tested this week by Tank Dell, another Senior Bowl hero, Tank Dell. So, hey, Texans liking my Senior Bowl guys. I'm into that for sure. So yeah, that'll be an interesting test. I do wonder about the Falcons pass rush on the outside has been mediocre, average, but their interior pass rush is by far the best part of the team. And I know you're getting, I think you said someone ended up on IR, unfortunately, at guard, but maybe Titus Howard is able to slot into that left guard spot. But how is that interior going to be able to hold up against the Falcons duo of Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata, who's been one of the most productive tandems in the NFL so far?
Yeah, so basically practice for the Texans. Their starting offensive line coming out to practice. Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, Titus Howard at left guard, Patterson, the rookie from Notre Dame, at center, right guard Shaq Mason, right tackle George Fant. So to me, that's a precursor as to that's going to be your starting offensive line for Sunday. They asked Bobby Slowick about it. He was at the podium and he said, "Hey, we're trying to get the best five guys on the offensive line." Look, I'm going to entrust myself mentally to trust this. I am not really sold on Titus Howard at left guard. And that's maybe because I've seen it where he had a bad offensive line coach, and it was like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole with him at guard and have
Yeah.
Marcus Cannon at the time that we traded for at right tackle. And that was just not good. Titus Howard didn't play well at left guard. He got better in some games and it was inconsistent. You're looking at a guy that's 6'5", 330 almost. And think about that height, weight, and trying to pull the guard. And I mean,
Yeah,
that's a big man.
he was
You know
always
that.
he was always a tackle, I thought, coming out. I was surprised that
Yes.
he was getting moved into guard so much.
See, he's a team player. He's a guy that just wants to go out there and he's going to do whatever the team asks him. And credit to him. I appreciate it, you know. But I am going to entrust myself. I have the fans telling me, hey, this is a new coaching staff. This is a new offensive line coach. And Chris Strausser, who was the O-lines coach at the Colts, longtime O-lines coach with Washington Huskies, and Chris Peterson. So, and he's had a lot of success in his career. So I am going to entrust in them. That is something I haven't done as a Texans fan
Yeah.
many times.
New
I
experience.
trusted
Yeah.
them last week in the decision that Austin Deculus is going to be left tackle instead of Garon Christian, who was with the Texans before. They picked him up last minute almost, had a few days to practice. I thought, okay, cool. Christian knows this organization. I thought, oh, okay, he could be the starter left tackle. No, we're going to go with Austin Deculus. Austin Deculus was not good at all, to put it quite simple. I saw him many times at training camp, and Will Anderson ate his lunch and put him on his butt many, many times in training camp. So I was hesitant. And then you go out against the best pass rushing defense in the NFL and 0 sacks. So I go, okay, you know what? I don't get paid to do this. I'm going to trust them to do that. So, yeah, I'm going to trust Bobby Slowick that he is right and he is putting out the best five guys against a good interior defense. We struggled with that against the Colts. Grover Stewart ate up Jarrett Patterson, just ate him up. I mean, it was not fair. Now, Jarrett Patterson has played well. Okay, he's improved. He played really good against the Steelers last week. But again, this is still a 6th-round rookie. You know, we were expecting Drew Scruggs to come back this week. He was a 3rd-round rookie from Penn State. They loved him coming out of college. They say he's a really good scheme fit for them, athletic center, zone blocking. So, hey, that fits exactly what they're looking for. But Patterson, the interior, is still something I am going to worry about because I did see him have a awful game against the Colts with Grover Stewart, DeForest Buckner. That's a tall task.
Yeah, that's probably the spot I'd look to target if I was the Falcons, is that interior that's just had to shuffle a lot due to injury, unfortunately. Yeah. But Juice Scruggs, I mean, 1st-round name grade. I mean, that's I don't know if I can think of a more elite offensive line name. So it's top notch. But let's talk about the Texans running game real quick, just because, like I said, big Dameon Pierce fan, big Dameon Pierce fantasy owner. I'm hopeful that the production will come now that the offensive line maybe is going to start stabilizing a little bit, but it hasn't been overly productive for the Texans in terms of total yardage. It seems like it's been functional. It's not really held the offense back, but not really been a strength at this point. The Falcons, on the other hand, started off allowing 150 rushing yards to the Panthers, but since then, they've been shutting down opposing running games, including, other than the quarterback run. They've been letting the quarterback run a little bit, but that's not something CJ Stroud does a ton. Not really something he was known for in college. But how do you feel about this run game, and do you think that's something that the team is going to try to lean on more going forward?
Well, you'd hope so, just because It felt like the Texans could have passed whenever they wanted last week against the Steelers, but they still continued to run the football and keep an honest offense, and they were successful at it. Dameon Pierce actually had a really good game against the Steelers last week. So, yeah, when I go down to the nitty-gritty of this offense, and I think of Gary Kubiak and I think of the Shanahan schemes, this is a run-heavy offense. D'Amico Ryans had mentioned it, before the season during training camp that, we're going to run the football. This is what we're going to do. We're going to run the football, and it's going to set up our pass game. And that's something that Gary Kubiak did here with the Texans. Run the football, Arian Foster, play action bootleg with Matt Schaub, look for a deep pass in Andre Johnson, or go to the safety valve in Owen Daniels. And you're seeing that to an extension, but it's Bobby Slowick's new just crazy offense that's like, oh, okay, sure, we're going to run the ball as much as we can, but who does a single back with no running backs in the backfield? It's just like, okay, we're going to go under center with no running backs in the backfield. And yeah, sure, that's an old school kind of play, but it is working because a lot of defenses are going, hadn't seen that in a long time. So Bobby Slowick is doing that and then adding the little wrinkle of some modern offense to it, whether it be just a boom, hike it, quick three, out to Nico Collins or whoever. But Dameon Pierce, I expect him to get on track soon. He's too good of a running back. I know he had, under 1,000 his rookie year, but he was hurt to finish the year. Didn't play in the rest of those games. To me, if he does, he becomes the rookie rushing yards leader there. So I do expect him to have a solid game. Let's not forget about Devin Singletary, who's also played well for the Texans. He's had some spurts here and there, and in some cases has hit the hole a little bit faster than Dameon Pierce. I will say, the offensive line, there's so much shuffling going along, so I can't give him any fleek or anything against him for, the poor performances week 1, week 2. I expect him to get better. Week 3 was a great offensive line performance. Week 4, great offensive line performance. He had a great game. I hope it continues, but, I think of that interior of the Falcons defense, and I'm starting to get those flashbacks of the Colts, and it just, there was holes for Dameon Pierce, and it was swallowed up by Grover Stewart immediately because he blows up the play. DeForest Buckner blows up the play. And it's like, damn, man, like the hole is there. It's just just a few more seconds for him to get there. We saw it in the Steelers game. I'm hopeful for him. I really am. I think he is going to continue, though, to get back on track and continue a really solid season.
Yeah. I'm not concerned about Pierce. We know what to expect from him, and I think he'll continue to heat up, especially once the offensive line gets settled. But maybe not this week. My fantasy team might have to take a hit this week. But yeah, if I'm the Falcons, that's what I'm doing is trying to focus on shutting down the run and trying to win on the inside. And the Falcons, their defensive scheme is completely different than it was under Dean Pease, where they're going to play a lot of man, they're going to play a lot of press, they're going to play very close and tight, and they're going and that has tested a lot of teams that want to play the quick game because of the Falcons really not giving any cushion or any separation off the line of scrimmage. So I'm interested to see how that shakes out, because I think this is an offense that has tried to emphasize the quick game because of the aforementioned offensive line issues. So I wonder if we'll see the Texans, with maybe the line healthier, try to push things a little bit more this week. But it's up to the Falcons to counter that, whatever happens, obviously. So definitely an interesting matchup on both sides, and it's really two teams going in completely different directions. Guys, before we get our final predictions for this game, I want to bring you a quick word from our other sponsor today, Prize Picks. So let me give you guys my Prize Picks real quick. Folks, welcome back to week 5 of our Prize Picks segment here on the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. Once again, thanks to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's show. quick refresher for those that are joining us for the first time here. Prize Picks is a skill-based daily fantasy game where you pick 2 to 6 players and decide if they will go more or less than their Prize Picks projection. The more players you pick, the more you can win, all the way up to 25 times your money on any entry. And at Prize Picks, you aren't competing against other players. It's just you versus the projections. Prize Picks also has a generous promotion schedule, so be sure to check in throughout the week because it's not just NFL, it's NBA when that starts up, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, whatever you want, so much more. It's all on there. And the best part is Prize Picks entries can be made in 60 seconds or less, and they offer fast withdrawals. It's that easy, guys. All first-time users will get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Just use our promotional code DBB for Dirty Birds and Brews, right? That means if you deposit $100, Prize Picks will match and give you another $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Just make sure to use that promo code DBB. And because Prize Picks is daily fantasy, guys, it's available in 31 states, including Washington, D.C., and most of Canada. It's the best way to have action on the game in states like California, Florida, Texas, Georgia, notably, and over 70% of the U.S. So, folks, let's get right to this week's picks. You know, Bijan receiving receiving more than number, I should say, was not available when I looked. So maybe they're onto us a little bit. That Bijan receiving more than has been basically hitting every single week. Definitely check back because I placed this on Thursday, so it's possible they do add stuff like throughout the week. So that if the Bijan receiving one is there, I would go with that one. But Houston, not a great run defense. They've struggled against the run, and the Falcons have basically been giving all of the work, or the vast majority of the work, to Bijan Robinson on the ground. His rushing number is 79.5, and I think he will go more than that. They're going to continue to lean on him as the primary driver of this offense. We're going to go back to Younghoe Koo this week with the 6.5, more than 6.5 kicking points. Again, I think this is in a weird way. It's going to be a kind of a bounce back game for this Falcons offense going up against a Texans defense that's pretty good, but I think that the Falcons match up really well against them. Sort of the opposite of the Jaguars, where the Jaguars were much better at stopping the run. The Texans have struggled there, so I think the Falcons are going to find a way to at least get some field goals on the board. So Younghoe Koo should be able to eclipse that 6.5 kicking fantasy points number. And then we're going to the dreaded Saints. But look, Alvin Kamara last week, he had 14 targets and 13 catches. Now, he only had 33 yards on those ridiculous number of targets and catches. But what that tells you is that Alvin Kamara is one of, if not the top target in their passing game at this stage, or at least the one they feel like they can get the ball to as quickly as possible. So 24.5 receiving yards, not a lot to ask for a guy that's getting that kind of target share, even if they're dump off sort of targets. So I feel pretty good about that one as well. So I'm rolling with these 3 guys this week, guys, but feel free to mix and match. Use some of these, use your own, use mine, whatever you like. Good luck to you this week. And just remember, if you're signing up for the first time, use that code DBB to get that 100% deposit match up to $100 at Prize Picks. Once again, thanks to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's show. All right, guys, we're back with Harley Dugan for our final predictions for this Falcons versus Texans matchup in Week 5. Harley, like I said before the break, 2 teams going in very different directions, but the Falcons are back home now where they've had their most offensive success so far. What's your prediction for Sunday's game?
Oh man, I am going to chug the Kool-Aid some more. It's never, the Kool-Aid's never in the fridge for the Texans.
You got to do it while you can. Yeah.
Someone made this Kool-Aid, and it is fantastic. We've had some sour, nasty, whatever it was in the fridge the few past years. It's great to finally have some fresh pitcher of Kool-Aid. So yeah, I'm gonna chug this as much as I can. I'm gonna say 24-13 Texans. I do think this offense is just going to continue doing what they've been doing. They're coming off 2 games where they scored 30 points plus, 37 against the Jaguars, 30 against the Steelers. I wanted that 37 so bad. I really wanted that Will Anderson scoop and score on JJ Day, and so, I am excited about this game. I am excited for my Texans. They're getting all this national media love. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to receive it, but I am just going to let it just rain on me, and I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to drink and have a great time on Sunday. and I do expect a good Texans win on the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at where these teams are coming into this game, if I was a neutral NFL fan, I would not pick the Falcons under any circumstances. I would not touch this team with a 10-foot pole. The defense has been very good, and I think your point total is probably about right. I think the Falcons can keep this game from getting out of hand on the scoreboard, but it just depends on if the offense shows up or not. The run game's going to show up, so there's always the chance that just Bijan takes things over. But the vibes are terrible around the Falcons, and they're great around the Texans. And this is usually when weird stuff happens to this team, and they just pull a game out of their butt. So that I'm gonna go against my intellectual judgment and my heart judgment, which is that I don't trust this team at all. And actually say that I think the Falcons squeak this one out. Just to confuse the NFL as much as possible, just because, I think I wrote a predictions piece about it that I thought this would be like a bounce back game for the Falcons and maybe a little bit of a mellow out game for the Texans, because I don't think the Texans have a bad game. I think the Falcons kind of just rebound in this one and squeak out a close win at home, where that they've done that so far. That's kind of been the only thing they can do. So, I think that's what happens, but I think it's either going to be what I predict or what you predict. I think there's two ways this goes. It's that the Texans shut down the Falcons offense and win comfortably, or the Falcons manage to squeak something out. So either way, I hope that it will be a much more entertaining game than the London game, which was just awful. So maybe at least you guys can have fun if we can't. So, but yeah, Harley, appreciate it, guys. He's Harley Dugan at the lead _HOU for Houston. Harley, anything else you're working on? Anything you want to plug?
Again, just make sure y'all are subscribed to the YouTube channel. It's the same thing at the lead _Houston. Any Texans fans out there, we accept them all from everywhere, so I appreciate everyone, coming on. We have the Bleav in Texans podcast as well. So make sure you are tuning into the Bleav in Texans podcast, making sure that, you hit that download and we get it going. We are excited about our Texans. We are excited inside the city of Houston. I got my Astros shirt on right now because I love my Astros. I'm sure the Braves fans are,
look away, Braves fans.
And maybe we meet again, and hopefully it's a different result in the World Series. So that's what I'll say.
That's definitely heating up. The MLB takes are getting out there. So I know that's probably. That's definitely one of the possible matchups we could see. It would not surprise me. So, all right, guys. I'm Kevin. I have Falcoholic Kevin. Thank you once again for tuning in to Dirty Birds and Brews. Please like, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave us that 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. We will be back on Sunday for more post-game coverage. Now at a more normal time that we're not playing in London, thankfully. Or I don't have to feel guilty about drinking before noon. So appreciate that, schedule makers. And hopefully we'll get a good game, a healthy game for both these teams, and we can both go into week 6 feeling good, at least about the future in one way or another. But guys, thanks again for tuning in. We will see you next time on Dirty Birds and Brews. Thanks again to Harley for coming on. Check out Bleav in Texans. We will see you guys next time. Have a great day, folks.